And hello, and welcome to the official broadcast of Lichess stream of the World Chess Championship between Dinglerin and Gukeshdi. Today with me, there's Felix, the amazing host that, of course, everybody has been seeing with Thomas in the last 3 days, and of course with the great Niels. Felix, today I'm the host again. How are you? How are you doing in the last 3 days? Were you nervous? Did you manage to do everything?
Yeah, I have to say, making the stream without Laura is a different thing. You always take care with everything so well, especially the technical things. So it was definitely a challenge to do everything without you. But yeah, I hope I managed to survive and to be able to bring the same quality, or at least to be near your streaming quality. So
No,
it's
thank
great to have you back on the stream.
Thank you. No, I mean, I think you did a great job commentating with all your guests. I really enjoyed watching when I could, so I hope everybody in the chat also enjoyed it. But now I'm back. I'm sorry, but now I'm back. Of course, Felix, you're always welcome to host again to see how you will manage other technical difficulties. But there are some technical difficulties on the board today because I see the London system. Is that correct, Felix?
Yeah, looks like it. Yeah, it's.
Yeah, so Ding is really, I guess that means he's really trying to win because, as we know, Ding feels really confident in the London system. As he played it against a match in Nepo and he won that game.
Mm-hmm.
Then he played it once again here in this World Championship match. And I remember at the press conference, he said, yes, I played the London. I played it in the match against Nepo and I won. So I tried to repeat that. At least that was his answer in a very short way. And Felix, does that mean that Ding is trying to score?
Yeah, I mean, we see the London is becoming more and more of a serious weapon. I mean, for many years already. And especially that Ding has quite good memories when it comes to this. Also, in his last game, he got a pretty good position. So it does make sense to go there once again, even though now I would say the surprise value is somehow gone. And I'm sure that Gukesh will come very, very well prepared to that game.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. I think, like you said, Gukesh is maybe even the most prepared on the London system out of all openings possible from Ding. And okay, let's just go through the moves if there are any surprises, because I don't think there's anything new. I mean, Ding decided to start with knight f3 this time. I think last time he's decided to start with bishop f4 immediately. Okay, I will just click the rec button so you can see my arrows.
Mm-hmm.
I think he started with bishop f4 immediately without knight f3, but I don't think it really matters because, of course, bishop f4 is coming now. I mean, there are some nuances. As a London player, I know there's some differences if you go knight f3 or don't go knight f3, just bishop f4 immediately.
Mm-hmm.
It differs from some bishop g4 lines, I think. And also black has some interesting tricks. Uh, if knight f3 is not played, however, I will not get into details and bore everybody with this opening details, because I'm sure what we will have at the board will have its own nuances, as bishop e2 has been played now on move 5. I think uh, Felix, if you remember correctly, was c3 played last time, or
Yeah,
was it bishop b5 immediately?
it was c3, and after bishop
Mhm.
d6, it
Now
was
bishop
bishop b5
b5,
check. Yeah,
followed by knight c6, takes, 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 and queen a4, followed by castle and queen a3, yeah?
exactly. Yeah, right. And then these lines are very
Yeah.
forcing, and I'm sure that Gukesh's team has figured out a way to just end the game basically immediately.
Yeah.
So this was kind of like a one-time surprise, which worked out really well for Ding. And now he chooses this bishop e2 move order, which yeah is quite interesting. And I'm looking forward to seeing what is his idea now after bishop d6. So now definitely bishop b5 check is out of the question. And the only question is what has he gained with this bishop e2 move order. One thing I could see is that he might take on c5 after bishop
Mm-hmm.
d6, or maybe later, and then push c4 in one move,
Ooh.
which then resembles some sort of a queen's gambit,
Mm-hmm.
sort of position, which is also very close to equality. So, but yeah, this would be one of the ideas for white.
I think your idea is amazing, because actually Rapport did play this. I think he was white. I don't know if I'm again. I see it on the Lichess database. I opened the
Hmm.
Lichess database, master database, and I see Rapport in 2019 against Shankland, and I think the game went. Actually, I will just import it. The game went like takes, takes, castle, castle, and c4
Hmm.
immediately. And
Yeah.
after knight c6, knight c3, a6, rook c1, and this long game. And if I'm correct, Rapport was, yes, white, yes, was playing with white pieces.
Hmm.
So actually they are following that game, and I think Rapport must have analyzed it, of course, from his game. He knows the best what are the ideas, and I guess Dink will be followed by Castle. Or do we maybe think they will follow? Actually, I think castle here is also just a must. Yeah, move 7.
After bishop takes c5,
Yeah,
yeah,
I think castle is
yeah.
basically what we're gonna see. I don't think there's any other interesting move to be played. I think developing and putting the king to safety is so logical
Yeah,
that, yeah, we
it
don't.
it looks much safer to castle first than to play c4 first, just to get the king to safety first, and then to play in the center with c4. That's also what Richard reported in
Mhm.
his game against Samuel Shankland.
Yes.
And yeah, it does align again, I think, pretty well with Ding's style overall. He's not really taking that many risks, and I think he's kind of slowly waiting for Gukesh to also become a bit overly ambitious, which has already happened
Oh yeah.
previously in the match.
Yeah. Okay, to sum up, Felix, because you were here for the whole three games, the last three games, how would you sum them up in a few words? Or if sentences, probably it's hard in a word.
I mean, I would say well thought out. Yeah, there were many twists and turns. Like both players had many different chances, but in the end, it just always ended in a draw.
Mm-hmm.
Also because of Ding's great defense. This was one major factor. Ding was
Mm-hmm.
in trouble in many of the games, but then he found some brilliant defensive resources, which was praised by many people. Also Magnus Carlsen in his
Mm-hmm.
recaps.
Wow.
So yeah, that was definitely a big factor. Ding's
Wow.
defensive capabilities.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. From that perspective, you're right, but also on the second hand, why did he get into these kind of positions where he had to defend so badly? I mean, some positions were hard, but then I remember some moves like queen takes a2. Do you remember? I was it last
Hmm.
game or two games ago, and I'm just like, Ding, why?
Yeah, yeah, that was
Oh, uh,
surprising.
and what is surprising as well, that Ding has not castled but plays c4 immediately.
Yeah, and after a small thing like 3 minutes, I'm not sure if yeah, it's somewhat already pretty. It's not that far into the opening, so a little bit surprising that he spent time here. I assume that the move order doesn't really matter if White goes c4 or castles
Actually,
first.
that is curious. You're correct. Should the move order matter? I think you're right. I also just checked Lila, and Lila actually likes c4 as much as the castle. In fact, Lila prefers c4 for a slight margin, not a big margin, but
Okay.
of course everything for her is 0-0. But um, from human perspective, I think she prefers c4, so it's
Yeah,
fine
I
and
mean,
it does transpose. Yes.
there might be some extra options if White starts with c4, but it's not so easy to see. What I would also guess is that if White were to start with castle, and
Mm-hmm.
if Black castles now c4, I think Black would be very happy to just take on c4. And now
Mm-hmm.
if White captures on d8, the rook can capture back on d8.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Exactly. And if he starts with c4, then Black probably doesn't want to take because yeah,
Mm-hmm.
then after queen takes d8, the king has to recapture.
Correct. Yeah, that's a very fair point you're making. So, if we take that into consideration, that means after castle,
Maybe he has something different in mind than short castle, but
ah, could be, could be.
I'm not sure what it could be. Like queen c2 might be an idea to threaten
Hmm.
cd5, but
I mean, with move like queen c2, you always then have to consider move like queen a5,
yeah,
bishop b4, followed by knight e4, and then some interesting pins could happen.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Black does have many options there as well. So I was just wondering why he starts with c4. Maybe he thinks it doesn't matter. Um, but I was trying to work out what could be the
Yeah, no,
differences.
you know, you
But
made a good point. Yeah,
he did went for short castle.
yeah, okay.
So yeah, usually in these positions now, if Black takes on c4, there's not really much happening. But again, maybe Ding is
Mm-hmm.
just trying to play it safe and is would be also more or less happy with the draw.
Yeah, playing it safe, but on the other hand, like you said, we know how ambitious Gukesh is.
Hmm.
I mean, even if the position is equal and he could repeat, he will not because he thinks there's always some chance of an interesting position that could happen. And also, if he doesn't think he's worse, he doesn't find a reason for him to accept the draw or to repeat, which, of course, that's very inspiring, but it can also lead to disaster.
Yeah, even if he's worse, often as we've seen, he
Ah, yeah.
he tends to yeah keep on playing if he feels like it.
Yeah, and also I think, yeah, because in last few games he was almost winning, if not even winning at some points. Like the evaluation was pretty much in his favor, but it always turned around. It was at some point even so badly that Dink was then clearly better.
Yeah.
And yeah, I find it surprising because for Gukesh, I always thought he was very accurate and very calm when he was winning or better, calm and collected, and that he just went for it, you know, directly. But I think that's showing his weaknesses, and of course, he would not like to. That's what I meant to say. Not want to equalize immediately, but he went knight c6 first, developing
Hmm.
the piece, and of course, just waiting um, for Dink to make some release. Like even if Ding decided to take on d5 himself, then Gukesh has two options. You can take with the knight or with the pawn. Of course, with the queen is also possible,
Yeah.
but also the pawn would be very, very interesting idea, as these isolated pawn positions would put pressure on white. Yeah, but that's why,
Yeah,
of course,
then
yeah.
there's an imbalance. Yeah, that's
Exactly.
correct.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
correct.
but he doesn't need to do that. Yeah, of course, I wouldn't do that either. Knight c3 looks very logical. Uh,
And this is still the position from the game Richard Report against Sam Shankland.
oh.
But now Gukesh takes on c4. In the report game, a6 happened. So yeah, now
Ah,
Gukesh goes for this simplification.
absolutely. But now we're in this point. At this point, we're following the game between Rapport and Aronian
I
from
was just about to say the same.
2018.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So Aronian decided to take Shankland played a6 in the previous move, and actually that's cool. We're still in some kind of his prep, probably.
yeah. Most likely. Yeah, Black is very very solid here. So probably not that many fireworks, which we're gonna see today. But you never know with Gukesh. He might come up with some yeah interesting way of approaching the position.
I'm sure. No, absolutely. I don't doubt Gukesh, nor I doubt Ding. In fact, you know, as a deeper player, I'm a bit biased in these positions. I think these positions are actually actually interesting on a deeper level as they seem on the first glance.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and yeah, okay. I mean, if we try to go and figure out how we can complicate things, I mean, after d takes c4, we can always take bishop c4, of course. I'm just trying to figure out if we can go something like queen a4 or queen c2 or maybe queen b1, because I this one will fall eventually on c4,
Yeah,
and I'm just trying to figure out if anything else but bishop c4 works.
yeah. You could definitely make an argument for keeping the queens on the board.
Mm-hmm.
The question is where it goes in. Maybe to a4, but then the queen could also maybe later on be harassed with a6 b5 in some cases.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. So I think that's a bit too slow. But I guess the Ding is not afraid of this endgame, however, yeah?
yeah, I think he will go for that. That's kind of in his spirit, and that was also Richard Raport's endgame against Levon Aronian. And Rapport had this plan with knight g5 to e4, which is probably quite instructive because the knight from e4, first of all, it attacks the bishop on c5. And other than that, it can often jump into d6, where it can cause all sorts of
Mm.
troubles for black.
Okay.
And
Okay.
bishop c4 is on the board.
Okay, that's a very, very nice plan. I was just trying to say that, okay, we saw that maybe Ding is working his best with queens on the board with some tactical ideas. As he finds also these very nice resources in worse positions. But yeah, this knight g5, 94, just very slowly but calmly grinding. However, Felix, I distinctly remember that Rapport's preparation, even in the first, let's say, first 4 or 5 games, has been amazing, or their seconds has been amazing because Ding always got an equal position, 0-0 by Lila, Stockfish, whatever. However, more pleasant for his side.
Hmm.
Uh, and then when we think, oh, Dink will be grinding this for 20, 30 moves, and we're gonna have a very interesting game because of that, and then Dink just decides to repeat, or he decides to, play something that's more safe uh, than some other ideas. And I'm afraid it's gonna happen today. Like he's gonna come out of the opening slightly in a not better, but with more ideas, and then that he's going to decide to draw again. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. You're making a great point. It's also what Magnus said. Again, I'm quoting him,
Mm-hmm.
that it's a little bit strange that Ding plays very ambitiously from the opening. He has these interesting ideas which often lead to fighting positions. Maybe this game is not the best example, but from the previous games. But as soon as things become a bit more unclear and he actually has a chance to play, then he just yeah, often just fizzles out to a draw. So this is, yeah, kind of a bit of a surprising strategy, I would say. Yeah, but
Um, Honestly, in my opinion, I don't think it's a strategy.
yeah, or maybe his psychological state of mind, which is just
Yeah,
not currently in the mood for these.
I think he's afraid, yeah, of taking big risks, or not even
Yeah.
big risks, slight risks,
Hmm.
because he knows it could lead to disaster, and he's always playing it on the safe side, but the safe side will not win him the game.
Yeah.
Um, However, on the other hand, Gukesh has not been playing safe, and he has not won the game since game 3 as well. Um, the games were shaky, but we love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then that's why I'm thinking, is Gukesh going to take on D1? Or is he more of like Queen E7, A6 type of player in this type of position? I think
Yeah.
more A6, right?
You could make a point for both things, either going into the end game, just taking only one, or just going something like Queen E7, and then, as you said, maybe later on to play for A6 B5. Also, Black could think about going E5, even though you have to be
Mm.
very careful with that because it does open a lot of squares for the white pieces. But yeah, this is
Mm.
one moment in the game where two different moves just lead to basically
Mm.
pretty different pretty different
Mhm.
course of the game here.
What would you do?
I would go into the end game probably,
Yeah.
especially if I'm playing against Ding. I would I would just play super solid.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Also, I was thinking not maybe because I was checking Lila's evaluation a bit earlier. So instead of, I think, bishop takes c4, Lila has these very interesting arrows.
Hmm.
And sometimes she makes black threats visible. And in that position, she made knight h5 kind of
Hmm.
as a threat for black, for white. Um, and that's why she also thinks bishop c4 is the best move. But I'm wondering if something like knight h5 could be possible even here, just to
Yeah,
complicate things.
yeah, it's definitely an idea. Yeah, often these knight h5 things are a thing in the London, because Black just wants to gain the bishop pair by taking on f4. Um, yeah, here right away it does look a bit like a computer move somehow. I don't know. Your Black is still not fully developed,
Yeah.
and Black is just moving his knight on the rim of the board. But it does make some sense as well. I'm just trying to figure out what happens if after knight h5, White just steps away with the bishop to g5.
Hmm.
So that's
I mean, we could always consider a move like f6.
yeah. And if bishop h4, you could think about things like g5. Yeah,
Yes,
these
I
are
could.
maybe trade queens first. Yeah, just to be safe. I don't know if.
Ah, okay, okay. Maybe first queen d1. That's what you mean?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe g5 also works right away. I was just a bit scared of this discovery on the knight on h5.
Yeah, but I think then I can take, right?
Yeah, probably. Yeah,
Uh,
most likely you can
but
just go
of course,
g5 right
yeah,
away.
some things to calculate. But no, I could argue that this is an interesting idea. I just also would be very afraid to play this with black.
Yeah, it is very very committal now.
This, yeah, white's king is way too safe and black's king is way too open and something I wouldn't want to do, I guess.
Yeah, especially if there are still queens on the board. I guess in an endgame it doesn't really matter because yeah, if black manages to get the bishop pair, and even though the king is a little bit unsafe in the endgame, it probably won't
Mm-hmm.
matter that much. But still, black is a bit underdeveloped, especially the bishop on c8 will need a little bit of time to fully join the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree, but somehow with this knight h5, idea of if oh yeah, idea of e5 becomes easier, no? So after bishop g5, no, I'm just gonna tell you what Lila is calculating on knight
Mm-hmm.
h5.
Mm-hmm.
She's saying knight e4, knight takes f4, queen takes d8, rook takes d8, knight takes c5, b6, rook
Okay, that's
fd1,
so.
b takes c5. So this is what Lila is calculating, you know? And
But
after bishop
this looks
b7,
actually pleasant for white. Yeah, like white has the better pawn structure. Pawn on c5 is a bit weak. From a human point of view,
does it?
I
Yeah.
think everyone would be very happy to take white here, even
Mhm.
though objectively it's probably yeah, very very close to a draw.
Yeah, I agree, but it's very interesting. She's suggesting that for actually black, she likes knight h5. I mean, at least right now, she likes to change her mind as well sometimes in the future.
Interesting, yeah.
But I
Yeah,
just wanted to show you what.
I mean this variation kind of blew my mind. Yeah, like there were so many things happening. I'm still trying to understand it all. Yeah.
No, it's a very funny line. Of course, after knight h5, bishop g5 is such a natural move that you don't really need to look at 94, but of course this is something you should be looking for.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
However, I am more on your side. I don't think this is going to happen because it's way too complicated for equalish position, even maybe
Yeah.
slightly worse. Yeah.
There's just like no point I think to go. I mean, of course there is a point if Lila says so, but it's very hard for human to figure this out. Like there are so many things you need to understand after knight h5 if you haven't seen it before.
Yeah. No, it would be very interesting. I'm just trying to see what is Gukesh's position right now. Not chess wise, but what is he doing at the board?
Mm-hmm.
And he's currently, I don't know, scrouching like that, and it's very funny to see him thinking and calculating. Do you think he's seen this position before?
Seen probably yes. At least from my understanding, like I've also seen this position, but this is kind of a point where you
Mm-hmm.
most likely stop with black, stating that black is very solid and there's nothing really to be afraid of. So I think he for sure knows all the plans here. He's a super strong player,
Mm-hmm.
so it will all come natural to him where to place the pieces. But I think he will be on his own from now.
Hmm. Yeah. I agree. I just want to see because I actually saw Pragdananda also played this with white, but I'm trying to figure it out at which point. Yeah, huh. Ah, yeah, okay. Pragnanda against Svan Erasmus was played in 2023 after White Castled on move 8.
Mm-hmm.
Svan actually played b6, okay. Yeah. So that's why I was thinking somehow, you know, because Indians are, I think, very good friends overall, and I think even if they are competitors, they do this because some openings or they check each other's openings quite often. So I was thinking like, oh, you know, maybe this is also Gukesh's territory somehow, but I just b6 is very different move following by different positions. So I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't, yeah, I wouldn't go into it. And after bishop takes c4, I think that's just a very normal position. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, just wanted to check that. Okay. Okay, yeah, you know what I wanted to ask you, Felix? We're
Sure.
getting to the end very, very fast and very soon. This is game 10 out of 14 games. And somehow the score is still equal, even though in the first match we had a big boom, on the third match we had a huge boom, but somehow the score is still equal with a lot of draws. What do you expect?
I have to quote Magnus Carlsen, since he is kind of the biggest authority there is, and I actually also agree with him on what he said, which is that Gukesh is definitely no longer the favorite. As we've seen how the match went, actually both players had chances. It's hard to say who had more chances, but yeah, it says already quite a lot that since we're 9 rounds into the match, the score is still level. So yeah, 9 games are a lot, and it just, I think, says that anything
Mhm.
can happen basically here. And I would even go as far to say that Ding would be the favorite if it would come to tiebreaks. So yeah, what do you
Wow.
think?
Yeah, this is a very tough question actually, because I think anything can happen.
Yeah,
Seeing, I was not here to commentate the last two games. However, I was watching them from afar. And even from afar, I was confused. I was like, what? Who threw this bomb on the board? And why are all the pieces scattered? I literally think anything can happen because I've seen D- Dink being careless. I've seen Gukash being careless. Not maybe careless, but I would use maybe word like also scared, maybe worried,
yeah.
imprecise. All these words. No, no hate towards the players. I think the best they could be playing for the World Championship match. They're amazing, and this is a very hard match. And I love that the games are dynamic, but that means anything can happen. So I agree. This could be very interesting. But if I had to choose a side, hmm.
You have to.
Don't do this to me, Felix. Um, I don't know. Just because of psychology, because I think that Gukesh is in a better mindset as he's declining all these draws. I would say that even in tie breaks, I would believe in him, even if they happen. But do you think they're gonna happen?
Yeah, it could definitely happen. Yeah, like if the match continues as it has been for the past 5 rounds, then we would have a tiebreak, at least from results wise.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's just so hard to say. Like all of the last games could have ended entirely different. Like it's not like the games were like some theoretical debate until move 20, and then both players just find the draw. It was many ups and downs, and both players could have won in many of the games. So yeah, it's just so hard to make a prediction. But I would say that tiebreaks are not completely unlikely. I mean, that's uh, that's the thing.
Absolutely no. In fact, tie breaks, yeah, are, like you said, are most likely to happen. So, but we're gonna see. We're gonna see. I mean, there's still these four games to be played, including this one. So bishop takes c4 still on the board, and of course a question in the chat. All the questions are very much welcome, as in this position it's actually very hard to find interesting plans for both players. I mean, Lila found knight h5, but this is not a human move. What's a human move is, of course, queen takes d1, rook takes d1.
Yeah, and someone actually
Yeah.
asked in the chat, which is a great question. Yeah, what would you play as white here, especially if you want to push for a win against a lower rated opponent? So what are the plans after rook d1, after queen takes d1, rook f d1? I think we've already mentioned that knight g5 to e4 would be one thing,
Mm-hmm.
because the knight from e4 again targets the bishop on c5, and also it would like to jump into d6, possibly winning the bishop pair.
Mm-hmm.
Also, rook c1 would be logical, just to put the rook to the c file. And I guess for both sides it makes sense to play on the queen side with the pawns. So for black, a6 followed by b5 would be a plan, and for white to play a3 and b4.
Mm-hmm.
Probably black is a little bit slow to get a6 b5. So in
Mm-hmm.
most cases, I would probably see here black playing b6 and just bishop b7. And when it comes to white, I think the main plan is to get one knight to e4 as soon as possible to try and play against black's underdevelopment, which is still somewhat of an issue.
Yeah, I agree with this. A6, b5 might be a bit too slow, especially because white is getting on the c file so fast, and something could potentially fall. But you're right. Like, let's say something like b6 happens, and we go something like knight g5, bishop e7, knight e4, and are we thinking about bishop e7 now?
Yeah, bishop e7, but then again knight e6 would come, and white probably wins. White wins the bishop pair here, and
very comfortable.
I guess you should give the bishop on e7, not the bishop on b7.
Okay.
Because if the bishop on b7, you cannot even hold it. I think, you have to take on d6, and then definitely white is maybe just a little bit better, but it could go pretty wrong for black very soon because the dark squares are just very weak here.
Yeah. We could also take with the bishop. I'm not sure what's best, but of course, I think that sound. Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a good plan for Ding. Even though the position is very symmetrical, I always hate symmetrical positions, Felix, because they always tend to lead to some kind of a draw, especially by top players. Not from my games, of course, because anything can happen. But somehow, yeah, this rook d file is very important. The development of both white's bishops are great. Everything, basically white did everything correctly, and look at his position now, it's perfect, basically. And yeah, black has to struggle with the c8 bishop, and I don't think Gukesh wants to struggle with that bishop.
Yeah, for sure. So allowing knight e4, knight d6 would definitely be something white would be happy about. Actually, I think that Levon Aronian, who had this position against Richard Laporte, came up with a nice idea, which was after knight g5 to go back with the bishop immediately to e7, and after knight e4 to go rook d8, just to try and play against knight d6. Even though also here knight d6 might definitely come at some moment. And also in that game, Richard Laporte ended up being a bit better.
Yeah, actually, this is still game from R10 versus Aronian, and Aronian actually won that game. Yeah.
Aronian won that game with the black pieces. Yeah, it was a rapid game, and Richard Laporte was in fact better. But he did win that game.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so that means this is absolutely an option. But if Gukesh is not familiar with it, it's a bit. It's a move you don't want to play Queen d1 if it's not necessary. Of course, you would prefer that white takes the queen and then you get on the d file, and it makes your life much easier with the black pieces, especially with this bishop. Could he be making an argument for something like b6 immediately?
Yeah, definitely. There is actually no rush to take on d1. If white really wants to keep the queens on the board, I guess he can do so. Yeah, maybe white actually wants to go queen e2 and then followed by rook d1. And the queen on e7, it's not clear where it goes, because if it goes to e7, the bishop on c5 is somehow a little bit exposed. Could run into issues with a3, b4 again. So maybe here I want to keep the queens on the board, in fact.
Yeah, I would do the same with white if possible, but I would do that in any case. Just because I really want my e4, e5 to happen first, yeah? Instead of black playing e5 himself, I want to do it with white pieces. I think it would just make a pleasant domination in the center. And also, like you said, if the pawn is on e5, then even something like knight g5, knight e4, knight d6 might be even stronger.
Yeah, e4, e5 is definitely an idea as well.
But I am dreaming, yeah? You must admit I'm dreaming, yeah? Black will not allow any of this.
Yeah, the question is if you can do something against it. But usually after e4, there are some resources for black, yeah, because also the d4 square opens up after e4. But if it works out for white, this e4, e5, black can end up in very, very big trouble.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, but now let's go back. Instead of b6, as you said, this kind of blocks the squares for the black squared bishops. Let's go back to your original idea, a6, b5.
Mm-hmm.
If this works, actually, I'm predicting this for Gukesh. I think this is his style. I really do. Keeping the queens, letting white to choose. I want to exchange them. I don't. And basically playing b5, taking space on the queen side, and bishop b7, and being happy.
Yeah, a6 is also the mostly played moves in correspondence games, which I've just checked. There are still a couple of them, mostly older ones from I mean older from 2019 or so. And white has mostly played rook c1 in response, which I think looks very logical.
Hmm.
And the point is after black goes b5, bishop d3 is an idea when knight e4 is coming, and the position actually looks pretty unpleasant for black from a practical point.
Wow. Okay, so after bishop d3, what was played? Bishop b7?
After bishop d3, bishop e7 was
Bishop
played.
e7, more safe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because also there's some tricks with knight b5. I guess we don't want to allow that. And after bishop e7.
Yeah, there were 3 games here still. Knight e4 was played in one, queen e2 was played in another, and your move e4 has been played as well. Which
Okay.
was, in fact, the only game which white won here in correspondence chess.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's kind of awesome. I like all these moves, actually, all of them. And you're right, this looks much more pleasant for white.
Yeah, definitely. So as harmless as the position may look, black still has to figure out some problems here, I would say.
Oh yeah, this is the curse of playing symmetrical positions. Somehow the person that's ahead is always it's always has some edge, you know. In this case, the person that's ahead is the white color, because there are more pieces developed, more squares to be checked. Even knight b5 is actually potentially an idea now that I'm looking at it somehow in the future, if we really want this square to be ours. So many ideas, like e4, you know, queen e2. Yeah, so many ideas for white, and so hard to spot something for black, especially if he's not prepared.
Definitely, yeah. The more I look at it, the harder it becomes for black. And I just wanted to check, like, what exactly, you couldn't say what went wrong for black since his position is still very reasonable.
Yeah.
But I was wondering if black didn't have anything better against this bishop e2 setup. And it turns out that after bishop e2,
let's go back, yeah?
after bishop e2, black could maybe go queen b6, which is probably the most the most ambitious approach, just attacking the pawn on b2. And now, since white doesn't have c3 yet, he cannot go queen b3. But yeah, this also leads to very interesting play. White thinks idea might have been knight c3, which then transposes to some sort of Jabava London. But yeah, queen b6 seems like the way to objectively play the position, also the main move in correspondence chess.
Actually, I'm confused why he didn't play it, because queen b6 these days is the most challenging approach towards most of the London system's variations. And knight c3, yes, of course, you have a threat of knight b5, but this is now not your typical Jabava London anymore.
Yeah.
And black is actually very happy, I think, even after you could make an argument even after bishop e7 he could be happy, because knight b5, knight a6, I think it's just fine.
Yeah, that looks pretty safe. You could also avoid knight b5 altogether with bishop d7.
Absolutely, yeah.
Would be also reasonable.
And I don't think this is something you want to actually play with white, because this knight on c3 then always becomes misplaced and you will always have to move it either back and then on d2, or somehow or sometimes it happens that it goes actually on e2,
Yeah.
In the future. But yeah, queen b6 just looks very ambitious. Is knight c3 basically the best move, or
My computer screamed 0-0 basically everywhere. I also short castle caught my attention,
oh
and
yeah,
after queen takes b2, c4 is possible, because
wow.
black should not take the rook on a1, because then after queen c2 the queen would get trapped. But it seems like Gukesh went knight h5,
Oh
which
no way.
yeah, we did not expect, but seems like Gukesh figured out everything on the board.
Wow, knight h5. That's crazy. Because Lila is was really suggesting that move very very nicely. Um, however, I really thought he would play a6, even though we did find it complicated. But I saw the percentage, of black winning, white winning draw, and mm, the biggest chance of black winning was after a6. It was 13%. Otherwise, it's like 8%. So I was like, oh, this looks like something Gukesh could do, but knight h5, wow. What do we,
Yeah,
like, I'm shocked. And also, what I'm thinking is, what if Gukesh actually knows this position and he pretended to spend a lot of time to make Ding think he doesn't know it, and he plays move like knight h5 and he's like, oh no, I don't know what to do.
yeah, that's what some people do. I heard many stories of friends as well who did that, and it worked out pretty well actually, in
Yeah.
fact. But yeah, maybe I assume we're gonna find out in the press conference. That would be pretty cool. Yeah, some mind games.
I would love that. I always love these mind games that could happen. However, spending 30 minutes on knight h5 is a lot. So it could, yeah, it could backfire if that's the case regarding time management. However, knight h5, Felix, that means we have some drama because now, of course, knight e4 is possible, but we need to consider bishop g5. What is Gukesh planning on that?
Yeah, bishop g5 is a good question. I would go back to the line we had before actually. After bishop g5, we talked about f6, bishop h4, g5, and
We did.
yeah, here again I was a bit worried with the queen still on the board, and I was thinking maybe white can play knight d2 here. So this was kind of my instinct, which was telling me that black should trade queens first, and yeah, maybe with knight d2 black can be in some trouble, because after g takes h4,
Ah, yeah, okay.
queen takes h5, queen takes d2, white can regain the piece with queen takes c5.
Oh, that's cute.
Some nice geometry, and the king of g8 is pretty unsafe. So I would suggest after let's say bishop g5 immediately just to trade on d8, and then to go for either f6 or also h6 is actually possible with the same idea.
Okay, h6. A bit safer, yeah. I like h6. And after, I think basically bishop h4 is forced after h6, right?
Yeah, you could also think about throwing in knight e4 once again.
Oh.
But I guess black could retreat the bishop to b6. Also, h takes g5 would be an option, and to go for that structure.
Okay. Yeah, this is complicated because feels like so many options.
Yeah, but white's bishop is somehow not that happy. It will go to h4. After g5, it has to go to g3. Then even f5 could come, and the bishop is slowly, yeah, not,
Losing its power.
yeah, exactly.
Okay, so I guess we do not. That's why the engine was suggesting move like knight e4.
Yeah, just not to let black push our bishop back.
But that means the Ding will have to calculate a lot. And I don't know if he's in the mood to do that.
Yeah. On the other hand, I actually think that knight e4 is somewhat of a logical move, because
it is,
then the
okay.
bishop never has to go back to g5. Either it gets traded, or if black's bishop moves back to b6 now, or to e7, white can always go bishop d6, and white can just get rid of this targeted bishop on f4. And yeah, then it leaves black with the passive bishop on c8, at least for now, because black didn't manage to get b6, bishop b7 yet.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. So, but that means, yeah, did Team Gukesh calculated everything after 94, or is he expecting bishop g5 just because it's more natural? I think he had to calculate 94.
Yeah, for sure, yeah. I think 94 is definitely on his radar.
And if I decide just to show after 94, just to play something like bishop e7, not to go into any dramatic ideas, I guess bishop d6 could be an idea, yeah?
Exactly, yeah. Now you can trade this bishop, which otherwise would be captured by black's knight.
Yes, so I would guess that we should not allow that.
Yeah, and your variation from before, which was suggested by Lila, was knight takes f4, queen takes d8, rook takes d8, knight takes c5, and now the move b6, which I think is very, very hard to spot. I was just wondering if black's position is that bad if he just goes back like knight g6, for example. That looks pretty reasonable to me.
That's a very, very fair question. And if I go, yeah, that's the question. If I go rook d1 or rook c1 now, trying to figure out very briefly, I would guess rook d1, rook fd1 now. And if you go b6 now, I could go bishop, knight e4 followed by knight d6, yeah?
Yeah, you could definitely do that. I'm also already worried about the 8th rank in black's camp. Like after b6, there might be some ideas like bishop b5 or something like that as well.
Bishop, yeah. b5, of course. Yeah, that's also why I was considering rook c1 instead, just to even put more pressure, but I don't think we need that, because also having the d file is very important. I don't like the knight on g6. I just don't like it there. Could I move it like on d5 instead and try to make some argument that's better? But after rook d1, I just don't see that, right?
Yeah, I was worried that some isolated queen's pawn might arise after rook fd1. Like for example, after b6, white could take on d5. And I really wanted to avoid these sorts of positions, which just, even though they might be objectively a draw, it usually leads to black having to suffer quite a lot.
But we do have to admit, Felix, that engines love isolated pawns.
They love to suffer, yeah?
And they love to suffer, yeah.
Yeah.
I will never understand it, but I think the engine would even take black in this position.
You know, the engines are just really, really good at finding these active resources.
Yeah.
And often with the isolated queen's pawn, or also with hanging pawns, you just have to keep finding those active resources. Otherwise, if in this case white manages to stabilize everything and attack the pawns, then it could mean just bad news.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Even though black has white colored bishop to protect everything, the protecting can be too defensive, and activity could be gone. So let's not do that if possible. Yeah. Actually, playing b6, I think after seeing all of that, Felix, becomes more logical.
To play knight h5 or?
No, so instead of I don't know, playing knight g6 or knight d5, yeah. I was thinking, yeah, so b6 makes sense.
Right away, yeah.
Exactly, right away. However, Felix, what if white just decides to go knight e4 after b6?
Yeah, that's another good question.
I would guess that
I mean, now I might have the
Yeah.
chance to play knight d3 here, because now your knight on c5 doesn't protect the d3 square anymore.
Yeah, and also b2 is hanging, so
Hmm.
I would guess that that's the main point of the engine, playing it b6 as well.
Yeah, but b6 is just, yeah, it's pretty hard to see, especially Gukash probably had to calculate that when he played knight h5.
Yeah, absolutely. He needs to, yeah.
Yeah, and
Besides all the dramatic issues after bishop g5. Um,
absolutely, yeah, which Ding might be still thinking about if he wants to go there.
oh yeah, absolutely. And knight h5, I like it. I like it. It's dramatic enough for me, for my standards. um, yeah. So, but I do really believe in the original position. Bishop g5 or knight e4 are two main moves. I don't think anything else could be big consideration. Or
Yeah,
what do you think?
I agree. If Black manages to capture the bishop on f4, I think yeah, he's definitely not in any trouble. I was briefly thinking about queen e2 here,
Yeah,
and after knight h5, just to ignore that
yeah.
and just play for piece activity. Like rook d1 is coming, then maybe a3 b4 again. Um, but yeah, it's somehow hard to believe. Maybe Black can take on f4 and now maybe even knight to d4.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
yeah. I was thinking the same thing. Knight d4, and then somehow just playing b6, bishop b7, and I would even argue that black could be better in the future.
Yeah, if Black is in time, that's the main question. Bishop is still on c8, so it does require some time to get it out. I wasn't sure if Black is in time, like knight takes d4. I guess queen takes d4, and now something like g3. And rook d1 is coming, knight d4 is coming, so yeah, still.
Very interesting. I mean, um, okay, let's say I do go b6 after g3.
Yeah, rook f. I guess rook f d1. Yeah,
Yeah, I would have to go queen f6, I would guess.
and knight
Ah, no,
d4.
94. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
okay. Immediately, yeah. Um,
yeah, and rook c1 is coming. It seems
yeah, could be
quite
unpleasant for
close
black. Yeah,
close
yeah.
for Black.
b6
Yeah.
is way too fast. I do agree. Um, I, I do agree. I do agree. However, I don't know. I just believe in black's position. I don't know. Maybe I have to go bishop e7 or something, or bishop b4. Um, instead of b6, I'm thinking.
Also, knight d4 maybe doesn't have to be played,
Yeah.
because it does expose Black's queen even further. So maybe you could go b6 right away or a6 b5 right away. Maybe just b6, and after rook d1, the queen could go to e7, for example, or to c7 maybe even to gain another tempo.
Yeah. I don't really like queen c7 because of rook c1. But also I don't like queen e7 because then again also bishop on c5 is a bit out out of
Yeah,
squares.
yeah, that's true.
um,
But I think here I have a feeling Black might be in time, because after a3 I can still go bishop b7, and if b4 I have bishop d6. So
yeah, you could argue that. However, after bishop b7, also knight e4 gets back the bishop pair. No,
yeah, that's true.
anyhow,
Yeah,
complicated.
but there can be a point made for queen e2. I mean,
Absolutely.
it's also not entirely obvious why it should be should be bad.
Yeah, I don't know. It just doesn't look very natural, but I'm sure it's something that you should at least think about if you have enough time for it.
Yeah, I agree.
And somebody also said queen d8 could also be possible here for white.
And then after rook d8.
Let's consider because this actually was a game. Oh, between Portish even in 1991, and I think bishop c7 has been played mostly. But
And then
after yeah, sorry,
after rook d7.
and after rook d7, bishop e5.
Now arguing that the rook on d7 is misplaced. Okay.
This is very interesting, but I don't believe in it somehow. I don't know from which side, but somehow this looks too unnatural to be played.
Yeah. Also, it's not clear what White actually wants to do next.
Yeah, I would just stick to bishop g5 and knight e4. I will just check what Lila is thinking. And I think Lila, yeah, Lila loves knight e4, obviously, but she also likes bishop g5 and she likes queen e2. And also she likes queen c2.
Mm-hmm.
Queen d8 also. Rook c1 is not bad.
Lila likes everything here, yeah. Basically.
Yes, she likes everything, but probability of being the best move, she does like knight e4 the most. However, with the percentages, yeah, she likes other moves as well. Like she doesn't feel any risk. Even queen b1, for example, or queen e1, she doesn't mind it at all. Even g3, she likes g3 as well.
Okay, g3 is incredible. Yeah.
Wait, let's go back to the original position. After knight h5, yeah, Lila even likes g3, which I think is what? Why? No, we need to play that. Huh. Okay, so that means Dink can literally play anything he wants. Anything.
Yeah.
Felix, say the move. He can do it.
g3, yeah. Definitely gonna happen.
Oh wow. No, I love that insight. Yeah, I think Dink will be thinking for some time now.
Yeah, it's a critical moment here.
Kind of, and not for Lila, yeah, but
yeah, but Ding does need to spend his usual time, yeah.
His usual,
yeah.
Usual 15 to 20 minutes after his opening variation is over. So that means he did not expect knight h5. That means he expected queen d1, yeah, or a6. As I think it was in Rapport's game between Aronia and must have expected something like this and was prepared for it. But then just Gukesh pretending not to know this variation. That's my theory. And just went knight h5 like Lila 0, you know, that's insane. If you found it during the board, on the board, at the board, that's I'm slightly impressed, just slightly, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was not acting. 25 minutes just to act would be somewhat surprising to say the least. So
he's a good actor. Even like making these faces.
Yeah.
Not really faces, but these poses, you know. I'm thinking so hard. Okay. I need more coffee, that just means that. But I cannot leave the chair because my cat is in my lap. So I'm sorry, Felix, we're not taking a break for another few minutes as long as the cat is here because I do not want to disturb her.
Sure.
Which means that you need to predict Ding's move.
That's a fair point. You should never disturb the cat. So my prediction is 94. I think it looks pretty nice for white, and yeah, it's also somehow in Ding's style, I would say, maybe because yeah, you're not giving up the bishop there, and therefore it doesn't basically lead to any material imbalances. So, and actually I didn't like fully see a way for black to like fully equalize after 94. Of course, the line which was provided by Lila is probably okay for black, but from a human point of view, it's not easy to see that. That was my impression, at least.
Absolutely, yeah, you're right. And let's just put that line back on the board so people know what we're talking about. So Lila suggested this incredible knight e4 followed by knight f4, queen d8, rook d8, knight c5, b6. Now rook fd1, takes, and bishop b7. And Lila said, okay, you know, good enough for me. I will draw that very easily. However, Felix pointed out that we think this is always slightly more pleasant for white just because of the pawn structure. Even though we have double pawns on the f file, Felix, that doesn't make anything much worse because we are controlling the center. But we could
Yeah,
make a point that if knight c6, knight d4 comes in time, that then it's okay, yeah? Or something like that.
I think so. Yeah, if the knight comes to d4, it's yeah, black is also has his own play. I would even say that these doubled pawns on the f file are maybe somewhat of an advantage even sometimes, because white does have the idea to maybe open up this diagonal for the bishop with f5, when f7 could be weak in some cases. Also, the knight is supported on e5. If white would go 95, which does seem pretty
Oh yeah,
logical.
that is very logical. You're right. You're right. Absolutely.
And
Oh yeah, this looks unpleasant after 95. I mean, okay, I guess I have to go knight c6, but that doesn't.
yeah, 96.
I'm not sure about it. Yeah.
Yeah, probably you have to. Yeah, it's kind of the only active move. And again, I don't really want to allow the knight to come to d4. But it's just hard for black to see. Like, you also need to think about 97 here, which looks like it could just pick up a pawn on the next move.
Too many complications. Yeah, 97. Yeah. What is this? What do I do? Knight a5? What do I even do? They go
Yeah,
rook
maybe knight
c8.
a5, and if knight c5, you can just take on c4 maybe, and then take on b2. So this probably shouldn't be dangerous.
Agreed. Okay, so knight a5, and if I move the bishop to, let's say, b5.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe now black can go c4 and then support the pawn with bishop d5.
Oh,
This,
that's
this
how you're gonna do it.
should be okay.
I
I
mean,
mean,
after knight e5,
yeah.
you're going bishop e5 immediately, and if I go rook c1, my point is after rook c8, I would go something like b4.
Uh-huh.
I have no idea what's going on, Felix. I don't know. I'm just putting moves on the board and hope they work.
No, there are many ideas here. Yeah, this is one of them. Yeah, I mean, maybe black is fine, but it's still yeah.
Let's leave it to the players, I would say that.
Yeah, black just has to be sure, and to see it from that far is not that easy. Yeah.
Yeah, you're not sure, like you said, like somehow 95 is coming, and then 97 is suddenly attacking my pawn. How do I defend it? Can I defend it long term? Am I actually losing the pawn? Do I have the activity? So many questions to be answered. And yeah, this is very complicated for Ding. And I think that means at least I would love to have another coffee. The cat is gone, went to sleep, so I'm gonna get another coffee while Ding is thinking, Felix. And if you don't mind, yeah, let's take
Sure.
a very, very, very short break. Don't miss us too much. And yeah, we'll be back in a few minutes. and welcome back to the Lichess broadcast of the World Chess Championship match happening in Singapore right now. It's round 10 out of 14 rounds. If the match is still equal after 14 rounds, we're gonna see the tie breaks. Felix, these are the scores right now. We've seen the win in the first round, we've seen a win by Gukesh in the third round, and then draw. Were the games boring though?
Oh, I was just about to say the score doesn't really reflect the courses of the games. Yeah, we've seen a very entertaining match, I think, so far. Many interesting and well thought out games. So from that point of view, it has definitely been extremely interesting to follow. And yeah, we have seen some moves now since we started in our break. So knight h5 was Gukesh's pretty impressive find, I would say, and this is where we took our break, and Ding opted for bishop g5 instead of our move knight e4.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm yeah, are we a bit surprised? Okay, I'm not really surprised by bishop g5. It's a natural move.
Yeah.
It's a human move. Like, if you see that it works, you do not need to play knight e4, queen e2, even g3 we saw.
Yeah.
Funny. We don't need all these complications if bishop g5 is working well enough for us. However, what I am shocked by is bishop e7. It's slightly passive, maybe drawish, even.
Yeah. It is a good objective move. It's very solid, and yeah, Black has a very healthy position. But I'm also surprised, just from what we've seen from Gukesh in his past games. He's always been playing for, I don't know, the maximum he could get out, being very optimistic. So I would have expected him maybe to trade on d1 and then to try and play for the bishop pair with either f6 g5 or with h6 g5.
Yeah, and if you don't mind, we can also actually show that on the board. Instead of bishop e7, we're considering queen d1, rook d1, h6, which could lead to some imbalances, right? Because I think bishop h4 was, or knight e4 was also an option actually here. Yeah, this was knight e4 was actually very interesting. However, we didn't like it because somehow Black just gets g5 and f5 very quickly.
Yeah, even though f5, now I'm just thinking f5 always runs into knight e6, and then knight x8 is a major threat when the pawn on e6 is becoming quite weak. So yeah, maybe Black would just settle for h6 g5 and then just to get the bishop pair, but that also looks very very solid and good for Black.
Absolutely. I'm just trying to fix my microphone so you guys can hear me better. I think it's getting better. Please confirm it's getting better. Please do. Because I have a lot of things that I can improve with the microphone. I just wonder if this is getting better, but I think it should. I just need some confirmation. In the meantime, I think knight e4 has been played now. Okay, knight h5, bishop g5, bishop e7. Like you said, there were many other options, but this was a safe one. But now Ding goes for knight e4.
Yeah, interesting. Honestly, I was expecting him to trade many pieces now, like even to trade on d8 and then maybe trade again on d8 when the game would be heading towards a draw, most likely. But with knight e4, he still shows some ambition, I would say, here.
Okay. Okay. Knight e4. I mean, I think, as we saw before, Felix, actually White has so many different options that he can play with. Even with this g3 before, I think this also shows that knight e4 is slightly ambitious, but it's also very safe. I don't see really, at least right now, a very dramatic move for Black that White should be at least slightly worried about.
Yeah, white's position is super safe in general. So yeah, black is always the one who has to be a bit careful here, and white has a lot of room for, yeah, for also for making mistakes. Like it's way harder for white to make mistakes here than for black. But Ding has to be ready now for again f6 g5. That that could become still more complicated than if white were simply to trade the bishops and the queens. So what does happen after f6? Or maybe take on d1 first, and after
Okay,
rook
let's
d1
do that.
f6.
Because now I am forced to go bishop h4. Aha.
Gukesh went back to f6. Interesting.
Yeah, I was actually because going f6, I mean, okay, let's just finish our thought here. Queen d1, rook d1, f6, bishop h4, and you want to go g5 immediately?
Yeah, that was the idea.
And after bishop g3, would you take the bishop?
Yeah, probably, yeah.
And after I take with the h pawn, for example, how are you going to develop and not be annoyed by your e6 pawn?
Yeah, that's a great question.
I mean, you could argue knight a5 and get the bishop away from this diagonal, but I don't think that works long term. Yeah.
Yeah, it still doesn't fully solve your problems with the bishop on c8. That's true. You could go rook d8 maybe just to avoid knight d6.
Okay. Fair.
But yeah, still also here, I mean, it's still most likely black that has to watch out a little bit, even though it's most likely very, very close to a draw.
Slightly risky, maybe. Slightly risky with this f6 for long-term annoyment
Yeah,
on the e6.
and also after g5, there's this typical idea of white going g4.
Oh, as well, yeah.
I'm not sure if it's working here, but it's also something black would have to watch out for.
Absolutely. No, you're right. Like g4 is such a typical idea, and I think this is something you always have to consider. And yeah, I don't think really as black you want to get this if the queens are off the board, just because pawn structure long term is weaker, even though you do have two bishops. The c8 bishop somehow is just so out of the game.
Yeah, that's the biggest issue for black, and he cannot really get e5 followed by bishop f5 or g4 still because of the pin. And
no, so yeah, that's why after knight e4, Gukesh decided to go knight f6, and I wonder if Dean goes knight c3. I wonder if knight h5 is going to happen, but I don't think that would be very funny. But I think that Gukesh, I mean, Dink knows Gukesh at this point, you know, and he knows that he will not go for a draw, and I think that Dink will not go knight c3. But first of all, we have to consider knight f6, I guess, or bishop f6 even, just to see what's happening after knight f6, bishop f6. Should I go something like queen d8 now?
Yeah, you definitely can, and I guess black can take either with the bishop or even with the rook, because the doubled pawns after rook d8, bishop f6, g6 are not really an issue, and black will most likely equalize with b6, bishop b7 to come next, or bishop d7.
Yeah, even bishop d7. You could even argue at some point e5 would be good enough, followed by bishop e6.
Yeah, that could also work, yeah, definitely.
Because now, yeah, this e5 square is very nicely supported by this double pawn. So that would just be very equalish, taking on f6, in my opinion. However, maybe I'm missing something deeper on that level. Somebody said queen b1 is suggested by Cici. I like it. I love queen b1.
Yeah, queen b1 or queen c2 also both make a lot of sense.
Absolutely.
Just to try and keep the queens on the board.
I'm always pro queens on the board. Especially when I'm watching the game. It just makes it more dramatic. However, we've seen that even if the queens are off the board, the games can get also very dramatic. So it's not that of a difference. But after queen b1, knight e4, I would have to go bishop e7, right? First. First of all, to protect this one as it was hanging, and after queen e7, queen e4. What do we do now?
Here with the queen still on the board, I would be a bit more worried with black. Still, probably not that much to be worried about here, but
just because of the c8 bishop, yeah.
Yeah, and also now I have some ideas with bishop d3, probably forcing you to create some weaknesses. Yeah, let's say black goes bishop d7 and now bishop d3, because both g6 and f5 are not really moves which black wants to make, I would say, unless there's a concrete solution there. Usually black just wants to stay with h6 here, but yeah, both f5 and g6 create weaknesses on the dark squares.
Yeah, but if I want to create something, it would be g6, yeah. Just because the black squares are no longer in that much of danger because there's no black squared bishop anymore. However, you don't want to do that, yeah. If there's an option, let's not do that.
Yeah. I mean, again, this should also be okay for black since e5 is coming and the bishop is most
That's true. You could also, you could argue that f5 followed by e5 immediately could also work. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Now that I'm looking at it, but again, something to be considered.
Yeah, someone in the chat also suggested bishop takes f6 right away after knight f6, and after bishop takes f6, queen e2, which also seems logical because the bishop on f6 is actually, it's not that great. The queen cannot move from d8 right away because then I would give you double pawns. And rook d1 is coming, and white has very, very easy play to say the least here.
I like this. I like this style. It's almost like now kind of French style of variation with something on when bishop takes on f6, and now this knight on e4 is very, very nicely placed, I would say. And you're right, queen e2 followed by rook d1 is giving this bishop on f6 some questions. And let's not forget the c8 bishop is very French bishop right now. So
yeah, that's true. Even though I have to add, if black goes back bishop e7 and after rook d1 he develops the queen to basically any of the squares, maybe c7 or b6 or a5, still feels like black is very solid to say the least.
Yeah, we're happy. Oh no, ding.
And he took on
no
f6,
queen b1. Yeah, knight f6 played by Ding. Yeah, I mean bishop f6 is a very interesting idea. We'll actually just turn on the Stockfish on Lichess because I'm just curious. But Stockfish does like queen c2 and queen b1. Of course, any move here is good enough for the engine. Oh, we're going for a lot of exchanges. Somehow predicted that. I'm just gonna check Lila as well. So yeah, knight e4, knight f6, actually being best move by Lila as well. And here, yeah, Lila also liked queen c2, queen b1, and bishop f6, all in front of the knight f6 that was played. So that's actually very interesting insight. But however, after queen d8, I mean, I guess rook d8 would be followed very, very quickly. Or do we go bishop d8? Yeah, that's actually what Gukesh is thinking. And did he move to... No, he didn't take yet. Yeah,
he did not. Yeah. He did not make a move yet. But both recaptures are very logical. And
are we expecting a draw now?
99%, I would say. Yeah.
You know, Lila disagrees. Lila is still at around 75 for a draw. 13%, around 30. Like, actually, I'm gonna give you the right numbers. 15% for white winning, 47 for draw, and 11 for black win.
Yeah, that's quite an optimistic statement, I would say.
Yeah, that's a lot of chances for white and black queen, especially given the ratings they have, very high ratings. So Lila still sees some drama in the future, but us, Felix, we see exchanges, and for us that
Yeah,
means
yeah,
not good.
absolutely. I'm just reading now that on the Lila page,
Mhm.
it is written that the probabilities are no longer adjusted by the player elo ratings.
No.
Does it mean that Lila doesn't take the player's rating difference into account anymore? Because I think that Matthew Sadler told us
Yeah.
that
Yeah, yeah.
it's
They changed it. They were okay, so I guess they changed it. Even though Matthew did say that for this World Championship match, it's supposed to take them in consideration. However, apparently in December they stopped that. Uh,
oh yeah.
so I guess, yeah, Felix, that would mean that they're based on, I don't know, 2800 ratings. It's not based on their own ratings anymore.
Yeah,
Something
we
like
would
that.
have to ask Matthew here. I mean, he's the
Oh, Matthew, we miss you and your
he's yeah,
insight.
yeah.
Please come back. No, Matthew's great about that, really. Yeah, I'm not an expert at all. Felix, you work with engines much more than I do. I think I can admit that. So, but Matthew is on another level.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I cannot even dream of getting to his level when it comes to um, all these things. It's very very impressive what he has done.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, but somehow it doesn't matter. The predictions, I think they would be very close to that anyway. I think if there were rating predictions evolved, I don't know. I'm not sure, actually. I'm not sure. Like you said, Matthew knows.
Yeah.
Let's leave it at that. Um, but no, it's just very interesting to see what Lila thinks compared to Stockfish, but somehow they're on this position, they both agree that the most ambitious thing here probably was either Queen B1 or Queen C2 to keep queens on the board. Like you said, Felix does make it a bit more interesting, especially followed by some Bishop D3 attacking the 8-7 pawn. Could be very annoying. But Knight F6 by Dink again deciding to play something safer.
Yeah.
However, in these positions, something safer doesn't necessarily mean worse because Black still needs to deal with the C8 bishop. How are we
Yeah.
going to do that? And that's why Gukesh is thinking what to take with. Of course, I do love Rook D8 because I really do not mind having double pawns. In fact, I think it helps me develop the bishop. But let's say that I take Bishop D8. Let's just say.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say like something like Rook D1 now would be...
Yeah, definitely. Because now if I take on the 8, that's anyway what black wants. He would just recapture with the rook. So I would like to just take control of the d file and see what you do here.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you what I want to do. I would be very curious about move like Bishop C7. Even though maybe it's maybe now that I look at it, it's not incredible. My idea was basically to go either h6 g5 or f6 g5. However, I don't want my bishop on c7 if I want to do that. Or no,
Yeah.
maybe. Okay, I'm just gonna tell you what I'm thinking. Let's say bishop c7. Let's say you go something like rook a c1 just to
Very logical,
see what's going on. And after h6, I don't know, bishop h4, g5, bishop g3. I want to go e5 somehow.
To like fully play against my bishop here, yeah.
And trying to really just put this bishop somewhere out there, you know.
Yeah,
Even
if black
here,
is in time to fully develop, it will be okay. But here, black's pieces are just not fully out. I think black will run into trouble with bishop d5 along the c file. This pin is very annoying. Also, the pawn on e5 will now become quite weak.
You're taking
So
away my dreams.
yeah,
But you're right, bishop d5, just extremely strong move, doesn't work. e5, even though something that I wanted to play, just doesn't work. Doesn't work. So bishop c7 is just not the move. Really not the move. What else could we consider? I do not want to take bishop g5 because Felix, like you said before, this knight from g5 is gonna come to e4 and then to d6.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do not want to help my opponent do that. Or
Yeah, if the
do you
knight
see
reaches
something?
d6 again, it becomes a little more tricky for black. So yeah,
Except if you see
this
something here for black that could make a quick development, maybe a6 or something, but I don't really think so.
yeah, and b6 bishop b7 seems a bit slow again, like maybe knight e4 again here.
94 again, yeah, but
And if
maybe
bishop b7 still
yeah,
knight
yeah,
e6
yeah.
or also rook c1. I mean, I'm
Rook
not sure if
c1, even rook
because
d7 somehow, you know.
yeah, if bishop b7 rook d7 is probably there. Yeah?
Yeah. Okay, no, again, very unpleasant, yeah, and that's why I'm thinking what to do here with black after rook d1. Do I go b6 immediately? But if I go for something like b6,
b6 also might run into bishop b5. Like there might be,
exactly, somehow bishop b5, and
even though you still have bishop b7, but
I
again rook
do.
d7 is there, so
I don't want to. I really don't want that for black.
yeah. So rook takes d8 seems like a like a
Safer, yeah.
safer option. And yeah, after this endgame, I guess that white would take on f6. I mean, here black is basically always okay. The only thing is what might not be fully obvious is that the pawn on h7 is actually a long-term target,
Yeah,
which especially in rook endgames,
yeah,
the king will always be bound to the king side, and there were actually some famous endgames
yeah.
um, where the side with the double pawns ended up even losing such endgames.
Yeah, you're right. I actually did see some examples of black actually losing this kind of rook endgames just because of the 8-7 pawn. Somehow
Mhm.
it's like you said, black is just bound to this pawn, and somehow white king just whoops gets to some h5, h6 at some point, and then it's very annoying.
Yeah,
And by the way, this is on the board, so rook d8, bishop f6, g takes f6, and rook fd1
on the
played.
board. Yeah,
Yeah, played. And yeah, you did make a great point that these double pawns can hunt Gukesh in the endgame. However, bishop d7 very quickly played.
and rook c1 as well. So players are really speeding up here.
Do you think they're speeding up towards the draw?
It definitely looks like it. Yeah, I hate to say it, but yeah, there really has to go something very wrong here for black to get into trouble.
Yeah, absolutely agree. So rook c1 played. Tell me, what do I do with my bishop on this side?
Yeah,
Do I go to e8? That's too sad. I guess that's not how I want to play. I was thinking about something like knight e7 followed by bishop c6. But please, you're a better endgame player than I am. I want to hear your ideas for black's perfect development.
yeah. I think that bishop e8, even though it looks quite passive, is actually a reasonable move because black can simply exchange all the rooks, like or he takes control of the d file. So after bishop e8, he can just take on d1 and go rook d8. And yeah, without rooks on the board, I think the pawn on h7, the weakness of the pawn on h7 matters even less. Knight e7 followed by bishop c6 is another plan. Even though after bishop c6, knight e4 could be a little bit annoying, maybe in some cases.
Yeah.
Also, another idea is just to bring the king into the center, like king f8, king e7, which is always an idea in the endgame. But Gukesh went for bishop e8.
Oh, Felix, I think we're heading towards a fast draw today. Or
Yeah,
or do you think there's still something in this position?
the question is how Ding will be thinking here. Like, will he just settle for draw? Is it okay for him? Because yeah, I mean, I can see many players trying to push this endgame for white. I mean, the position is still not a dead draw, White does have some ideas also to play on the king side, like g4, h4, and g5 would be one idea to try and make use of the pawn weaknesses. So yeah, White is definitely the one who could try something here, but yeah, is Ding up to it? That's the only question.
I mean, if Gukesh was white in this type of position, I think we would expect something like g4, h4, because he knows it's equal, and whatever he pushes and is not worse, he will do it. So if Gukesh was white, I guess we would see that, but for Ding, that would mean that he's now in a different mindset if we see something like g4, h4. That's why somebody actually suggested, okay, yeah, so of course he first took on d8, but somebody actually suggested, for example, after rook d8, if Black's idea is actually to go also f5, king g7, and put the king on f6, or do we not want to play f5?
Yeah, that's definitely also reasonable, just gaining more space. Also, if you play f5, then White will not have this g4 idea anymore. Usually, White wants to play g4 to discourage Black from getting f5 or h5. So, and also the king on f6 is very active. Also, Black could think about just going knight e5 right away to simplify even further. And,
easy, easy simplification. But can you explain why did Ding take rook d8? Why did he need to do that?
Yeah,
why not king f1 or something first?
Maybe he didn't want Gukesh to take and then go rook c8 when Black would take control of the c file.
Okay. So he prefers the c file over the d file. Okay, fair point. If he thinks that's better, I understand. Gukesh is thinking. Is he thinking to take with the knight on d8? I don't think so, right?
Yeah, taking with the rooks. Rook looks
healthy. Yeah. Yeah, I don't see any worries being taken by the rook. I was thinking, is he worried about bishop b5? But nothing to be worried about there. I mean, everything's perfectly covered.
Yeah.
Even something like knight e5 could be played also later. So after rook d8, what do you think Ding will do? King f1, g4?
Yeah, still, I like the idea of g4, okay. But again, I think that Black could simply go knight e5 and go to this rook and bishop endgame.
Okay, let's check. So g4, knight e5, takes.
And already rook d2 could be an idea.
That's absolutely, yeah, okay. And also, you know what I don't like about this? Bishop is coming to c6. And I really do not like this for White.
Yeah, now especially that g4 is on the board, it did create some weaknesses as well.
No, yeah, don't want to see that. I prefer to go king f1, maybe to be safe. Maybe also to play either king e2 or king e1 later, just to stop any rook d2 ideas in the future. I'm not sure what to expect.
Just bringing the king is also logical, yeah. King f1, yeah. You just have to watch out. You probably don't. I was about to say that king e2 might run into knight a5, but you can still go back to d3. So
yeah, still some resource there. Absolutely, yeah. So no worries. But also I was thinking, yeah, worst case king e1 also would not be too bad. But then also knight before knight d3 could be annoying. So you know, always some weird chances happening there and there. I'm not sure if Gukesh has played the move yet, because I'm actually looking at the live cameras and looks like Ding is thinking. But I think Gukesh has not taken yet. Yeah, I don't see, sadly, a lot of ambition. Yeah, Gukesh just is returning to the board. I guess he went to the snack.
Makes sense,
yeah. Yeah, he's returning with a full mouth of snacks, still snacking, which, yeah, it's also a very important part of a chess game, to be energized. And now that he's back, he immediately takes rook d8 and king f1. Yay! I made the Ding move once in this game. Good enough for me. Yeah. So King F1, and are we going to speed up to move 40, or are they going to find a repetition at this point?
Great question. I don't see a repetition quite yet. Who knows? Like maybe Ding is still thinking about trying something here. It's hard to say. Mm, yeah.
Mhm. And somebody in the chat also said, Felix, okay, you have great repertoire knowledge, and they love your courses about the Nidorf on the Nidorf. So, yeah, I guess do we hope to see Sicilian in this championship match in the future?
Well, I'm glad to hear that. As it looks now, Ding has sticked to his French defense, and Gukesh has not, yeah, didn't go back there because he,
Yeah.
yeah, had bad experiences from the first round. But
Mhm.
yeah, so far both players have stick to either the French defense, or Gukesh has played e4 e5 with black. So yeah, in general, in the World Championship matches, at least recently, I think we saw almost exclusively e45, mm, and there has been almost no Sicilians. I think recently. I
Yeah.
remember that Magnus did deploy it against Fabiano Caruana in their
Mhm.
World Championship match.
Yeah.
But since then, yeah, the Sicilian is a pretty risky opening, and usually you want to stay solid with the black pieces. So therefore, I think in this World Championship match, we won't be seeing one. Maybe if someone really desperately needs to win a game to level the score.
Aha. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Like it's not been very popular. It's very edgy, especially because there's so many variations, and also everything has been analyzed so deeply at this point that it becomes not as attractive as maybe like the French is now, because it's imbalanced and maybe not as explored with the engines as the Sicilian at this point. I don't know, just
Yeah,
I
yeah,
guess could
that's
also
definitely
be.
one thing. I think that also the French does keep some safety towards it, because the position is usually quite closed,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
there's room to maneuver around, which is probably what Ding wants. Sicilian positions tend to be very open, and do require mostly calculation, which is probably what Ding wants to avoid against Gukesh in this match.
Yeah. Uh, Yes, I agree, but I do have to say I do like the openings. I mean, we have the London, we have the French defense, we have the Catalan, Knight F3. This is all my repertoire, I'm happy. I'm chilling, here basically knowing what's happening. However, my games are usually more dramatic with some more blunders and less queen exchanges very early on in the game, but I don't mind it. I like the openings. However, I did expect maybe more um, more dramatic ideas by both camps. I mean, the preparation, of course, has been absolutely incredible by both. But if we compare the candidates' preparation to preparation in this World Championship match, I don't know. I was very impressed by players like especially Pragnananda, also I think Gukesh, Firouzja,
Mm-hmm.
for their preparation in the candidates. Would you say they took more risks there with the openings?
Yeah, definitely. Also, the candidates probably requires a lot of more risk taking, because in the candidates, +1 will not be enough
Yeah,
for winning the tournament,
yeah.
and yeah, in the World Championship match, +1 will be enough. So yeah, in the candidates, you need to take many risks to be able to score as many points as possible. So I think therefore we saw many, you could even say crazy ideas in the candidates,
Mm-hmm.
but in the World Championship match, you will see mostly some ideas which do keep some safety as well behind it, which yeah, which don't escalate that much. I would argue.
Yeah, fair point. I would say so myself. But yeah, after King F1, if this game ends in a draw, there's still three more games to be played in the classical format. So, I mean, still a lot of drama can happen. Yeah, if I'm
Yeah,
correct, and also tie breaks. I mean, I would love to see tie breaks. Obviously, I mean, I
yeah,
think it's
that's
the
is
most
super exciting.
dramatic.
Yeah, yeah.
It's the most dramatic, is the most blunders can happen there, because of course these two players are way too strong to make a lot of blunders in, or any blunders in the classical game.
Hmm.
Uh, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what's going to happen. We cannot predict the future. But you could predict your score, of course, in the chat with your points. um, and yeah, no, okay. After King of One, I'm sorry, but
King
yeah, King
G7 was played.
G7, a very safe move. I mean, you could also argue that playing F5 first was maybe better just to stop this G4 idea. But what if I go G4 now, Felix?
Yeah,
King
maybe
G7, G4.
maybe still 95. Is G4 is not on the board.
No,
Okay.
no, no. I sorry. I put it
Yeah.
there just because I wonder. After, okay, so you're going to go 95. I guess I have to take
Hmm.
take. Yeah, I wanted to be dramatic for a second. Somehow King E2, for example.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I might put the bishop to c6. Just it looks pretty active there, and
And after something like F3, do I want to play something like F3?
slowly I'll start thinking of running in with the king, like king g6 or king f6, and yeah,
But I won't let you. I go H4.
yeah, you go h4, of course.
Of
Yeah,
course, yeah, I will
that's
not let anything happen. And I'm going to go Bishop D3 as well in the next move.
yeah. So I'll just stay with h6 here probably, and
Mhm.
then I'll just kind of wait around for the rest of the game. Also, I'm
I mean,
hoping for you to play bishop d3 because then I have bishop takes f3.
no, that's actually a very bad way to play this position with white pieces.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's still probably okay. Rook c7 and
Very nice to point that
yeah.
out. I did miss that, Felix. So thankfully you did play h6. I would have to go bishop b3 and then bishop c2 first if I wanted to have this idea, of course. I mean, I wanted to argue that I can go rook g1 and go g5 somehow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. White still keeps like some maybe small ideas. Like black can
Very
basically
small, yeah.
only just wait, and white does have some pawn breaks. But
Absolutely.
yeah, whenever white goes around to the queen side, there will most likely be some counterplay on the queen side as well.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. Something like also bishop d5 now, or rook
Yeah,
c8, anything basically could happen. So I mean, yeah, I tried to dramatize. Sorry, guys. Sorry, it doesn't work. I tried my best. Felix, now you try. After King G7, try to make this position dramatic. This is our challenge today. Make
yeah,
a drama.
yeah, yeah. It's not that easy. I expect King Ding to play something slower, not g4 right away, but yeah, the question is what else he can do. Maybe king e2.
Maybe King E2, yeah, King E2.
And if black goes f5, white still has the idea to do something on the king side, which is h3 and then g4. Again, trying to play against these pawns. And let's just say black does nothing here. What white wants is here that black captures, and now the pawn on h7 is like a long-term target. So this is the main idea for white. And if black ignores this, then white will be able to take on f5. And yeah, now the pawn on f5 is like a major target. So this
Of
is
course,
what white could be playing here if black were to go f5. And if black wants to stop this with h5, now the issue is that the pawn on h5 is a long-term target, which can be attacked by white's light squared bishop. Like you could even think about fixing this pawn here, and sooner or later the bishop could drop back to e2.
Yeah, I wanted actually to say, what if I go h5, just to, if you go g4, that I exchange everything, but you pointed out that's actually a big weakness in the future, especially with these colored bishops.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Very nice to point that out. That I think that's important. So if black doesn't have h5, of course, that makes it a bit difficult for him to stop this g4 idea. If of course Ding decides to to go for it. However, yes, you did find drama. I like it. Even if it's very slight, that's very important. That means that the game is still ongoing.
Yeah,
Of course, it's still draw. I think every engine would draw this in a heartbeat.
yeah,
But
for sure.
from a human perspective, Felix, like you said, this 8-7 pawn long term, if it stays on 8-7, 8-6, or even on h5, long term, it's very hard for humans to protect it at all. I mean, in all types of positions, at some point a human breaks. Engine doesn't, but human breaks.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a great example also. If white plays a slow move like h3, all of a sudden with black you start to see some ghosts, and you desperately want to try and defend it the best way possible. But Ding has played a3, another move which is sensible,
Very
just
sensible, yeah.
stopping knight b4. Also, the bishop could retreat to a2 in some cases.
Also
And
go to b1 if we want to attack 8-7 in some positions later. a3 makes a lot of sense. It's basically just a slow move asking black, okay, what's your plan? What you gonna do? But are we gonna play 95 now, do you think?
yeah, 95 is still an idea. That's a good point. Now I don't have g4 yet, but it probably doesn't really matter. Yeah. So what do I even do after 95? Yeah.
What do you do? What do you do? I mean, the question is, of course, first if I even want to take 95. But I think I
Yeah.
do. I think I do. I mean, actually, I'm not sure if I do.
Because if you drop back the bishop, then I
Yeah.
can take on f3 and then even get in with the rook, like rook d2 maybe.
Yeah, maybe also include a check if needed,
Yeah.
but I don't think rook d2 is good enough. Good enough for me, in my opinion. Of course, something still to be calculated, but looks good enough.
Yeah. So 95 seems like a very clear equalizer here.
Yeah,
Because
very
if you
clear.
take on e5 again, yeah, nothing much is happening here.
Yeah, yeah. Felix, I don't know.
I
Just
saw
don't know.
a very pressing question in the chat, which is, does your cat play the cat, Alan?
Does my cat play the Catalan? Everything about this stream is cat themed, you know. They're no chatters, they're catters, you know. And they're not chatting, they're purring. So everything. It's not Saturday, it's Catterday today. By the way, we just changed the whole concept of today. But I sure should teach my cat how to play the Catalan. I think I was inspired by her. That's why I learned it. Yeah.
Yeah, you take a lot of inspiration from them. Yeah,
Yeah, chat is actually making is narrowing chat and the cats are narrating my life. By the way, F5 played by Gukish, so just so 95 didn't happen, but F5 did. So
yeah, it's still of course good enough. Even though 95 would have been, in my opinion, like the clearest equalizer.
absolutely. Okay, I'm just gonna check Lila's chances at this point. Yeah, and I think they're almost at 80% chances of drawing this game, but obviously we know that. I mean,
Yeah.
hard to not to say that. However, after f5, Felix, Lila likes bishop b5 as well.
Yeah, that's quite surprising to me. I also just saw it, and I honestly cannot really understand what's the point, because I have a hard time believing that white wants to take on c6, even though it might be connected to the concrete idea to follow it up with knight d4 when white could take control of the c file. But yeah, still bishop e5 is quite a surprising move, and Ding went for king e1 instead.
Yeah, I mean, now a3 makes a lot of sense as well, because if we wanted to go king e1 to protect the d2 square for the future, yeah, there was always knight b4, knight d3 with a check.
Yeah.
That was slightly annoying, and now there are no annoying moves.
Absolutely, yeah.
For black, yeah. And yeah, we could even make an argument that white is slowly improving to his perfect position. Rook is on a perfect square, king is on a perfect square. Knight, we could argue, is pretty well placed, right? Or would we want to have it somewhere else? Not
Yeah,
really,
it
right?
seems pretty good on f3 here.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out why he went to e1 and not to e2.
I would I
Um,
would guess.
there
Yeah,
could be an
sure.
idea that after king e2 there's rook c8, and now you
Hmm.
cannot really move the bishop because of knight d4 check, and the rook
Oh.
on c1 is hanging.
Yeah, and also in the future, the knight could move, and then some rook c4, followed by bishop b5, could be potentially, I'm not
Yeah,
speaking, but potentially could be a trick white should watch out for. And I agree, king on e1 is just safer. It's on a black square, and there are no tricks like that
yeah.
with any checks. So king e1, I like it, but also king f6 by Gukesh, as somebody also pointed out in the chat, if that's the idea before. And look, now Gukesh is playing like our chat, so that's a compliment. And also, if we mention the times, it's moved 21 and they still have 1 hour. So I'm sorry, but no time trouble today.
Yeah, not what we expected. Yeah, usually thing was by now on like 20 minutes or 30 minutes, but
Yeah.
the position was just so simple that that he did not feel like he needed the time, which is
Yeah.
a good change for once.
Yeah, it yeah, but he also did say it depends on the position
Hmm.
that he's playing. He does play fast when um the position is easier, of course. But when he sees some complications, he said that in the press conference, he spends his time in a different way, or different he has different time management. So
Yeah,
very logical, and today's position seemed to be quite easy for him, even though he could have complicated it if he wanted. But I don't think there was a need today, Felix. I don't think this game today had a lot of very deep, long term, either strategic or tactical ideas.
yeah.
Especially
We've
because Gukesh found knight h5.
yeah we have seen more complex games.
I mean, we could argue that after knight h5, I will just go back to illustrate it.
Mhm.
Um, that Ding could play knight e4 and try to make this work instead of
Yeah,
going bishop g5.
yeah, that would have still not been that easy for Gukash to fully equalize, as we discussed.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. But I do wonder now. I mean, okay, it's in the past, of course, but after knight e4, could bishop is? I know we said like after bishop e7, the difference is we could make an argument for bishop d6. So
Yeah,
this is a better version for Ding, I
yeah,
would say. So this may be almost the only potential difference that where Ding could play maybe more actively or more, I don't know.
it's more like
For
more testing maybe
yeah,
for Gukash
yeah,
to fully equalize, even though of course it's still like it's not a big chance or anything. It's maybe the biggest chance in the game, but yeah, still the position would have been very
yeah.
balanced.
No, yeah. I mean, that's basically the only thing that I could point out. Otherwise, of course, probably today, Felix, we're gonna see 100% accuracy again.
Yeah, at least very close to that. There,
Yeah, should. If not 100, then at least yeah 98, if
yeah,
nothing else.
something like that.
Which is gonna be a working day for Kramnik. No,
Yeah,
of course, joking a bit, because these games where there's a lot of exchanges very quickly, um, and the game is very quickly followed by an end game. These games are very likely to be very close to 100%, as the players didn't even have a chance to make mistakes because they did exchange most of their pieces immediately.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Um, by the way, bishop e2, can you explain or do you understand what does Ding want?
Yeah, so the bishop on c4 can sometimes be attacked, as we've seen. Like knight a5 could be a thing. Also rook c8, as we saw before with the king on e2, threatens also knight a5 with the pin. So the bishop on e2 is quite safe, and I can see another idea for white, which highlights the what I was saying before, the weakness of the pawn on h7. So white could have the idea with rook c4 and the rook swing to h4 to target the pawn on h7. Still, with the king on f6, it's not that effective because the king can still protect it with king g7, But it could be an idea later on. This rook swing in this structure is a common idea here.
Yeah, does make sense. Also, I just noticed that maybe Ding is preparing for black to play knight e5, and in this kind of scenario, bishop comes to f3
Yeah,
to
that as well,
stop
yeah.
bishop c6, because bishop c6 could be annoying. It's a beautiful square for the bishop, in my opinion, black's bishop. So you could also argue this could be the case, or also in the future moving the knight somewhere and going bishop f3 himself. Not, of course, now, because knight e5, knight e3 is unpleasant. Just thinking, yeah, this could also be safe.
That's a great point. That's a great point, Laura. I have to say, because if black manages to get the bishop to c6 after knights are traded, then yeah, the bishop is just kind of untouchable there, and it's very active. So that's another
yeah
thing with bishop e2. Yeah.
But Felix, okay, I'm gonna play. I mean, I like drama, so I'm gonna play move e5 now. What are you gonna do against it?
e5.
It's probably a very bad move, but I just wanna test you, you know.
Yeah, still the position cannot be that bad for black, of course. I'm not sure. Maybe now that you don't have knight e5 anymore, I'll think about regrouping my knight e2.
Okay. Now, okay, the thing is, if I go e4, you can always have some g4 ideas, and I do not like that.
Yeah.
I do not like that.
g4 is an idea.
Okay. So I wanted to go for something like knight a5, but I think you can just go b4. Even though, let's say I do go, yeah, before rook d2. That's what I was thinking as well. Like, I guess that just works perfectly for a draw. Would you say so?
Yeah, that does look like a fairly simple draw.
I'm not sure. I mean, endgames like this can also always complicate with some mistakes, but especially because this pawn structure, but I don't think black should be worried that much.
Yeah.
Yeah, so after knight a5, what are you doing, actually? What's your plan? Is it rook c7?
Yeah, rook c7 or also rook c3, just to avoid your threat, and then just to go b4. But if rook c7 does work, then I don't...
Yeah, the thing is, I just basically wanted to play bishop c6 and kind of hope for something, but b4 just traps the knight. Yeah, so let's not do that, if possible. Yeah, so e5, of course, basically, Felix, in this kind of endgames, we do not really want to push the pawns too far, because potentially they could become big weaknesses, and also some squares could be huge weaknesses.
Yeah, exactly. After e5, the pawn on f5 becomes way weaker, since it cannot be defended by another pawn anymore. Also, the diagonal a2 to g8 opens up, so the pawn on f7 could also be attacked in some cases. Yeah, e5, it seems like it would be a bit too ambitious, maybe.
Yeah.
It just does create some weaknesses for white to possibly exploit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so of course dramatizing doesn't work, but of course Gukesh is also just, I think at this point, also thinking, let me just, make this draw, have a chill day, have some ice cream.
Yeah.
If there's a nice day outside. Happy with the black pieces, with the draw with the black pieces. But what is his move? Do we go king e7 and then bishop c4, king f6? Where's the repetition, Felix?
No repetition to be found yet. That's kind of frustrating.
No repetition, yeah. I mean, I guess Gukesh is thinking if knight e5 still somehow works. Just because even if bishop f3 happens, that maybe he's making a point that b6 is good enough.
But
However,
b6, rook c7, and I'm kind of
yeah.
starting to get worried here.
I mean, I go rook d7, but after rook c8, then I have to go rook e7.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, look at this though. Yeah, this is crazy. But it works, no? Or no? Don't want to do that. Let's not do that
Yeah,
if not
because even
possible.
now you cannot really even move your pieces because whenever the bishop moves, you have to worry about rook h8.
Yeah, very,
Rook
very
cannot
important.
move, and yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. No, let's of course 95 here is not the best idea. So maybe what shall we do? H6?
H6, yeah, very very logical. Just waiting, yeah. You could also try and get knight d7 followed by rook c8.
Uh-huh, okay. Yeah, that's a good point. Now that I've seen, probably also Dink wants to play b4, so maybe we should do something about this rook exchange as soon as possible.
So either knight d7 or rook c8 first. Look pretty logical.
I mean, if I whatever, let's say rook c8, I go knight d4,
And knight d7, yeah.
and you go knight e7, and then I was hoping I could go rook d1. But
Just to keep the rooks on the board, yeah.
yeah, just to maybe go on a different file, but I no.
Yeah,
I don't
because
like it, yeah.
yeah, the c file seems more relevant.
I agree. I
Because
agree.
all of the entry squares on the d file are covered
I
on
agree.
both sides. Um,
Yeah, I agree. No, this I do not want to go rook d1. Um I like rook c8. I do like rook c8. I after knight e7.
Yeah, now the point is that after rook c7, I have rook d7, and you cannot go to c8 because the
Yeah.
knight covers that square.
Very important, yeah. Also, 97 works, yeah. I mean, I would always be afraid. I mean, not really afraid, but kind of not sure if giving the d4 square is good. But if I have rook c8 as a healthy response, then of course it's okay.
Yeah.
Of course it's okay. Yeah.
That looks reasonable, yeah.
Let me see what Gukesh is doing at the board. Except, of course, thinking. Yeah, nothing dramatic happening. Nothing dramatic. Nothing dramatic. Things are falling down from the table. So at least there's drama in my room, Felix. Yeah.
At least somewhere, yeah. And someone pointed out in the chat that he thinks that Ding is playing, or he's planning on playing it safe until game 14, and he would actually be the one happy for the tie breaks. I think we already talked about it recently, but like before. But do you think that is his strategy? Like, do you think Ding sees himself as a favorite, or at least to have good chances in the tie breaks?
So the thing is, I do not know if Dink ever sees himself as a favorite.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah.
I mean, because he's very humble, in my opinion, or I don't know, either he has low confidence or he's very humble. Maybe it's a combination of both. I think he's a great person in general, very kind, very respectful, very humble. But I think you need to have a lot of confidence to play the World Championship match. I actually don't know if he sees himself as a favorite, but I think he would like to go to tie breaks. I don't know. For me, in my opinion, it would be more stressful because everything is at a higher stake, higher risk.
Yeah.
And if we take in the psychology of both players, Gukesh would be more psychologically prepared for higher risk takes than Dink. And that's why everybody's saying that Ding is a favorite in tiebreaks. I really, in my opinion, I don't think it's that far ahead. What do you think, that Gukesh would prefer? Sorry, that Ding would prefer tiebreaks, or?
I think so. Again, it's hard to say because Ding is just very humble. You might even want to say pessimistic in some cases. But Ding's rapid record has been pretty impressive. He's still the second highest rated player. He's the number 2 in
True.
rapid chess. even though, of course, he hasn't played Rapid in a long time. But it's kind of known that Gukesh has been struggling with shorter time controls. So, yeah, as humble and pessimistic thing might be, I think even he will see that he has pretty good chances in the tiebreaks. That would be my guess.
Yeah, yeah. Basically, now that you pointed it out, Gukash, I've never actually seen Gukash, yeah, perform in rapid championships that much. So it's very hard. Yeah, it would be probably harder on Gukash. I guess he likes to think as well. He likes to calculate, and more time he has, happier he is.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess you're right. I guess you're right. I don't know. It would be very funny because everybody's saying, not everybody, but most people are saying that Ding is a favorite in tiebreaks, and if tiebreaks happen, that Gukesh would actually win them. I think that would be a big surprise for everybody. But somehow, like I said, I do believe in Gukesh's rapid skills as well, just based on all the games I've seen so far. He does make mistakes in better winning positions, but he gets to the winning positions, and it does come naturally to him. He feels when he's better. He feels when he has something. So I think his intuition is great. However, we will see. I think it would be very exciting if we saw
Yeah,
a
it's
tiebreak.
still four games to go. So
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know. I did not predict tiebreaks to be happening from the beginning of the championship. So I don't know, would you expect them? I really did not expect that we would be even that close to tiebreaks, especially given the last championship match.
yeah, especially in this match, kind of everyone was saying that the match will not last for too many games because Gukesh will just absolutely crush Ding. I was never so sure about this.
Yeah.
I always felt like like Gukesh is probably the favorite, but yeah, I think the experience from the previous World Championship matches play a very very big role, and I think that's also what we're seeing. Ding does have this experience already,
Mm-hmm.
and Gukesh, yeah, it's Gukesh's first match, so I think that does play a role. But of course, I also had a hard time believing that with Gukesh's style that we would see a tiebreak. And
Yeah. Yeah, I do agree. And a lot of grandmasters and experts also agreed on that. So yeah, I would love, like, I think all chess fans would love to see the tie breaks. I do not predict them though. I really don't, even though they're only after this game is drawn, which is very, very likely, Felix.
yeah,
That after in the next three games, I think there's gonna be one decisive result. Maybe at least one.
yeah, especially that Gukesh has two white pieces still. And I also feel like that Gukesh actually wants to avoid the tiebreaks. That's just my feeling, because maybe he does have some self doubt when it comes to faster time controls.
Uh-huh.
Also seeing that Ding has a very high rating, and yeah, that he's a very intuitive player. So
True.
of course, everyone wants to decide the match before the tie breaks. Everyone wants to win the match before that. But I think Gukesh does even have some extra motivation to do so. For example, with Magnus, he was kind of looking forward to the tie breaks because he knew that he's a massive favorite there in all of his matches. I think that's not necessarily the case in this match.
Yeah.
And
Agreed.
Ding has played g3, which is a nice prophylactic move, so that after bishop c6, the knight can move without the pawn hanging on g2.
Yeah.
But yeah, what does happen after rook c8? Is Ding just gonna capture on c8?
Yeah, I think so.
Probably, yeah. Yeah.
Very likely. Or king d2 even. I do think Lukash will play rook c8. Like you said, I think the whoever has the c file has maybe um more activity, maybe slight edge. Not really edge at this point. This is actually draw, however you want to put it.
Yeah.
But I think rook c8 will happen, and of course now Dean can play king d2. He can actually take it. I mean, he could even, I don't know, play rook c4 if he wants to say, no, I will not take your rook, you take it first. He has so many options, but I
Yeah.
think these rooks will be exchanged sooner or later. So let's say takes, takes. And yeah, I mean, just something like king d2, and I don't know. Just an equal endgame followed by a draw soon, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Or do you think Gukesh after g3 will go bishop c6?
Yeah, that's also possible, but yeah. Then after knight d4, I'm not sure what I would do as black.
No, I agree. That's because what does this bishop do on c6 really? You know, I mean, I can go to d5, but that just lets me in with rook c7 somehow.
Yeah.
I would guess
So I think that rook c8 is kind of the
the right
Bukash's
approach.
idea, yeah, with knight d7.
I think so
And
too. I think so too. Um, it's funny that Gukesh still hasn't played the move. I guess maybe he's also looking for some chances after g3, but I don't think so, honestly. I think that very soon. Do you think if there was no draw offer rule, because in this championship you cannot offer a draw till move 40, if there was no draw offer rule, would they offer a draw after rook c8 or maybe after exchanging the rooks?
yeah, it's quite likely. I wouldn't see a point why not to offer a draw here, especially if you're playing against a similar rated opponent.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you're playing like against like a weaker rated opponent, there's not so much point, I guess, in playing this on, unless you're Magnus Carlsen, I assume. So
Yeah, another level there.
yeah,
You know what you know what why Gukesh is thinking, because I actually am checking Lila, and somehow Gukesh today with his idea he has been playing like Lila, this knight h5. Um, this knight h5 plan was a very Lila like move, and Lila in this position is actually suggesting knight c8 as well.
I haven't thought about that at
Me
all.
neither. Me neither. Just because we want to get rid of this rook, right, Felix? Just take the rook
Yeah, yeah,
and draw, you know, please. I do not want to watch this endgame anymore because it's gonna happen. Like the draw is gonna happen no matter what, because they're both such good endgames players. Still not enough coffee in my system to speak correctly. I apologize.
yeah. Knight c8 is interesting. I mean, I haven't thought about it at all, but I guess it just brings the knight to d6, where yeah, it does control the b7 pawn, and also it might jump into e4 in some cases. So it's a nice regrouping idea.
Yeah. However, if I'm Gukesh, I just really, why, you know, why would I complicate at this point? I came so far with this f5 king f6. Let's just leave it at that. However, rook c8, yeah, okay,
Rook c8 is on the
yeah,
board, yeah.
rook c8, and it's only move 23. Felix, are we going to see 17 more moves?
I mean, I thought that there is one repetition here. If Ding plays king d2, then rook d8 check, king d1, so maybe.
Oh my,
But
no.
Ding took on c8, yeah.
Ding did to take on c8, knight c8 also on the board, move 24. Do you think that Ding thinks he has slight chances just because of this 8-7 pawn, or is he just like searching for a draw himself?
I think now there are no more chances. I think the biggest point is now that no rooks are on the board anymore, because now the h pawn cannot really be attacked anyhow. With the rook still on the board, as I've pointed out before, the rook can swing onto the h file and from there harass the pawn on h7. But without the rook, I don't really see any way for white to make use of that weakness.
Absolutely agree. Yeah. I mean, you could argue it is a weakness, but not really. It's untouchable. Don't care of it. I can put it also if it's ever going to be in danger. I just play 8-6.
Yeah.
and I don't really care about it. So yeah, I just wonder where's the draw. Because this is not a really position that I want to analyze very deeply. Felix, but you go ahead if you have some variations that you see, please. Let's say for example, you are, I don't know, I'm just trying to figure it out. You are white and you're playing against Gukesh. What do you do? How to draw
You
it
know,
quickly?
how to draw it
Oh
quickly.
no,
Okay,
no, maybe
that's
no.
my.
How to win as well? If you want to play for win, please tell me.
I mean, I'd like to activate my king, but if I go king d2 right away, then knight d6 followed by knight d4 would come.
Okay, let me
So
put it on the board.
yeah,
So that's a bit annoying because f2 would also be hanging. So I guess king d2 not. I mean I could make an argument for knight d2.
yeah, knight d2 is what I would suggest, and after knight d6, I would play knight c4, and yeah,
And then after knight d4, knight d2.
something like that. Yeah,
No, actually, I think also here f3 should be
or
considered.
f3. Yeah,
So maybe I mean, but even that is fine because after knight c5, I guess knight d6, bishop c6. I mean, everything's fine at this point,
yeah,
honestly. Like,
absolutely.
I do wonder what the thing is thinking about, or he just wants to make us and the audience suffer. Or do you think he's suffering himself? Like, oh, I had very nice preparation and everything's just a draw. Do you think he's struggling with white pieces?
I think he's struggling with both pieces when it comes to that. But yeah, I mean, as already, which was suggested in the chat before, I think it is Ding's strategy to reach the tie breaks. So therefore, I think he's just happy with the draw, and he will try to hang on with the black pieces, not to get into too much pressure, and try to hold the games. And yeah, I'll stick to that prediction that Ding actually would like to see the tie breaks.
No, yeah.
And
No, absolutely.
I'm still a bit confused by the Lila predictions, since Lila gives 11% here to white, which is a
Really,
bit mind blowing to me, honestly.
this is a lot. I think now that I don't know which rating she's taking as well. Um, if she takes any, however, yeah, this is a too high percentage for this position. 11%
Yeah,
for white winning in this game. It's no, it doesn't work for me. I don't buy it, really.
yeah,
No, this should be like at least 90% of drawing chances here, at
absolutely.
least. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, someone pointed out in the chat now that I might be over analyzing the situation. Probably they just play game by game and see whether they have a chance or not. Yeah, I also thought about that. But what is strange when we're thinking about it is that whenever Ding has some chances, he's not really taking them that much. So therefore, I reached the conclusion that Ding just wants to play the rapid section. So that was kind of my explanation for that.
Yeah, also as chess players, we like to think ahead. Even if it's not
Yeah,
something that we want to do, we still do it. And even if our second, let's say, rapport is saying, just play this game, we'll see what's going to happen. Yes, you say okay, but somehow when you reach a position, you always think, okay, there's still 3 more games to play. I'm just gonna. What if I played safe? I'm one step closer to this. And I don't need to take risk. I do not use the energy. That's very important. I do not need to use the energy. I save the energy for the next games, and I'm closer to what I want.
yeah,
So I think even though they do play game by game, they always somewhere back in their mind, we do think about all these possibilities. And by the way, something's happening very quickly. So knight d2, knight d6, knight c4. Gukesh didn't go for knight d4, but he took everything. And after bishop c6, f4.
Yeah, there's not much to be said here. The only real question remains if players will just repeat moves here, or if if they will play on to move 40.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, yeah. um, I think we're gonna see move 40, so 12 more moves or something like that. B6, King D2 very fast. I think Ding is just like, okay, Gukesh, play fast. You know, I want to sleep now. Here, have my dinner. I'm just done with this game. So I feel like Ding is really blitzing this. Yeah, he's like, okay, really, no more chance, no more tricks.
Yeah, no more tricks here. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, King D2, King C3, King is coming to D6. I guess we will see King D4,
Yeah.
and
now I think it will just be a waiting game.
So you say you would not go F6 here, Felix?
He even went F6. Yeah, it's also possible. Yeah, why not?
No, I mean,
put the pawn on a dark square. You could even play E5, I guess.
You could. See, we have something. We have a plan. But before played by Ding, also.
Yeah.
I mean, stopping the king from coming to C5. I mean, this king is now stuck on D6. This is his best square. Sadly, I cannot come with the bishop to G8 to take on H7. But yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I could. Yeah, no. I wanted to say I could argue that I could go H4, H5, but whenever I go H5, H6 happens by black, so. No. Sorry, guys. It's just going to be a draw.
Yeah, but I'm really looking forward to tomorrow's game. I think we will see, as I said before, I think Gukesh will still try give it everything he's got for his last 2 white games, and I expect to see a pretty big fight, honestly. So that's gonna be really interesting.
By the way, F6 on the board! Yay!
Okay.
Gukesh did go F6 and King D4. Yeah. So that's kind of fun. 8 more moves. 8 more moves. And then I think
I'm just wondering if white does have one trick. I don't know. Let's say you just wait with black here, like bishop b7.
Okay, you're H6, yeah, for example.
H6.
I know. What did you want to do? What did you want to do? Please tell me.
Like the only trick was if black doesn't play H6, but he just waits, like bishop b7. Now I go bishop d3.
Okay, yeah.
Bishop c6 back, and now maybe e4 could pose some problems.
Oh.
Because these pawn endgames, yeah, probably it's still a draw, but if white manages to get g4, then h4 and g5, white can create an outside passer, and it might be a bit tricky.
Yeah, absolutely. That could be actually a very good chance, but
yeah, but after Gukesh went h6, this trick is not there anymore, and now.
So yeah, the moves were bishop. Now they're repeating. Okay, bishop b7. Sorry, I'm just making h6. Yeah, yeah, bishop b3, and now they're repeating. Yeah. Okay, they found a repetition.
Yeah.
They did it. Good job. A good job for them.
Yeah,
just gonna wait. Yeah.
Sorry. How many draws was it now in consecutively? Was it 6?
You know, let's just put on the results on the screen. So from round 4 to round 10, they were 7 draws. So
7 already. Yeah.
This is the 7th draw. That's what I mean. A lot of draws, however, like we said, not boring ones. Maybe this game today was not very exciting, to be honest.
Yeah.
To be honest, they had more exciting games. However, I mean, do not blame them. Like you said, Ding is fine with tie breaks, so draw with white pieces very solidly, very quickly, saving energy for the next 3 games. It's absolutely fine. Sorry, next 4 games. I always said 3 games, but there are actually 14 games. This was game 10. And they have still 11, 12, 13, and 14 to go. That's
Oh,
the
right, yeah.
that's the
I also
correct.
mixed it up. Yeah,
I
you're
also,
correct.
yeah, it's 4 games, so not three. Still 4 games to go, which is a lot of games to go.
Yeah.
Um, and if you had to sum up these games somehow, would you say there were any critical moments, any interesting ideas in this London? Of course, Bishop E2 on move 5, yeah, that's very interesting idea. I think Gukesh should have played Queen B6 to be very ambitious today.
Yeah, even though you could understand him, maybe he wasn't that familiar with Bishop E2, and Queen B6 does unbalance the position quite a lot.
Mhm.
And with Bishop D6, he just stayed really solid,
Yeah.
and also the position he got to, it was never really that a dangerous knight h5 was a nice find by Gukesh. He did spend some time there, and it seems like it was time well spent. And maybe the one a bit smaller chance for Ding was to go knight e4
Yeah.
instead of bishop g5. But that's kind of a critique on a very, very high level there.
Very, yeah, it's like at this point, yeah, this is really such an equal symmetrical position that it doesn't make a lot of difference. I mean, you could always argue you're playing on the bad c8 bishop that is fighting to get out somehow through b6 or through d7 or through e5, and that's why maybe knight e4 was more it was maybe with slightly higher chances for white. However, bishop g5 does make a lot of sense, and yeah, knight f6 also by Gukesh, uh, very safe. He played it safe today, which I understand. And Ding decided to take the knight. He could have kept the queens on the board with something like queen b1 or queen c2, both with the same idea that after knight e4 we would put the queen on e4 and then play bishop d3 with some checkmate ideas. But he also didn't decide to do that. He just decided to exchange everything and go to this endgame. And yeah, just I think he was very happy with the draw today.
Yeah.
I mean, we could also probably or you guys could also watch the press conference after to see what Ding's insights were in this game, because it does seem to me that he was just playing for a draw or was very happy with the draw.
Yeah,
Not sure which one was it, but yeah.
I agree. It certainly did look like that. And yeah, actually not that surprising from how his previous games went as well. Um, yeah, he does show some idea in the opening, and then it seems like he's just trying to find a draw as soon as possible. Yeah, that's just how I'm feeling. He's approaching the game.
Yeah, actually, I do love watching these press conferences after, because Felix, when we analyze the game, we have these things in our own head. Oh, what are they thinking? And we're guessing,
Mm-hmm.
and from our own experience or from our own minds what they're thinking. And I do love to watch their insights as well at the end of the round. And I think it's great, sometimes even funny, with
Yeah,
some
yeah,
Ding's quotes. Like he said, um, basically I was outprepared in the opening, I was worse in the middle game, and I played badly in the end game, but I didn't lose. Yeah, something
yeah,
something
yeah,
like that. And now this is a very famous quote. I think also Hikaru was making a video on it and was saying, like, basically Ding is throwing shade at Gukesh, like, haha, you couldn't beat me even at my worst play. Which I don't think he's doing. I think he's just being very honest.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I do love this insights. So Felix, tomorrow, what do we have? Gukesh with the white pieces.
Yeah, Gokesh with the white pieces. As I've said before, I think he will try everything he has. The team, Gukesh's team, will be working nonstop to try and find ideas. I'm still, it would be interesting to see also the first move already. Does Gukesh finally, is he finally ready to face the French defense again? Or does he have any other ideas in the Catalan or in the Reti as he played in his previous games?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's gonna be really interesting. But I think tomorrow it's not gonna be such a short day for us.
Yeah, I also, I mean, I did expect today's game to be quite long, actually. I'm a bit surprised with this outcome.
Yeah.
I I do not complain, Felix, of course, but I think we should regain energy for tomorrow. As you say, Gukesh is white, and he does not want to go to the tie breaks, very much, very likely, except if he secretly prepared for rapid tie breaks for
Yeah.
months in advance. You never know, you never know. However, I do think that tomorrow is going to be a very interesting game. Let's do guess the opening. I do not predict the French.
You don't?
I don't know. I do not know. I would love to see it, but somehow I just don't feel that's going to happen.
Okay, then I'm gonna guess the French just to
Ah,
spice things up.
no, you're going to guess the French. Okay. Yeah, it would be very hard. I think we're going to see some knight f3.
Okay, also a fair guess, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, which I mean it could transpose into anything somehow. But we'll see. We'll see. Yeah. We'll see tomorrow. Thank you everybody for being here. I appreciate Felix for you to join me and have this excellent commentary. I did miss it, even though it I was a bit out of it. I was afraid that when I will come back, I will be not able to speak, but somehow I managed. Tomorrow, with more coffee, I might be even more fluent. So, thank you guys for staying here. I do appreciate it, and see you tomorrow, same time, same place. Bye.
See you tomorrow, guys.